Bobby for Prime Minister.
I think
got a little ring
things
to it.
have happened, haven't they?
Yeah.
And
I like the way you said then that we haven't had a gay Prime Minister. How do you know?
Well, true, yeah. I don't...
I'm sure there's been some dabbling over the years.
I was there, been a couple of dabbles. Well, I'd be loud and proud about it. And I feel like however long Trees is about, who knows? And if the house
So
is empty...
you're putting yourself up for a leadership election?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I've only done one day in Parliament, so maybe I've got a little way to go. But
What's your campaign going to be? When you go from door to door, what's your technique going to be? You know, Bobby, you have to wear a rosette. You have to ring a doorbell. And you have to talk to the post.
What are you going to do about Brexit? That's what I want to know.
Yes.
I might vote for you.
Well, this is it. I feel like we're all having a little bit of a mare of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't think Nove Treason knows more than I do when it comes to it, to be honest. It literally confuses me, but...
I can see you out on the stumps, as they call it, going around the neighbourhood. You ring the doorbell, you've got your rosette, Bobby for PM.
Yeah.
What's your next line?
Bobby for PM, vote for me, get me in Downing Street.
Downing Street?
Downing Street, I mean,
what are we
you
going to
get a little
have
cat...
from better cushions inside Downing Street and a good decor and possibly more shops behind those railings?
I want to give back to the NHS. I feel like there's a lot of nurses out there and people that fall under the NHS umbrella and they work really long shifts and I'd like to see them rewarded a little bit more.
All right, more money for the NHS.
More money for the NHS.
And would you get Bobby's Law in play?
Oh, I would definitely. I don't know if you're allowed to do that if you're PM, but I've got to try.
Well, tell us about it. What is it?
So, for me, I've gone through this, what I can only call as vile and disgusting online homophobia. Now, don't get me wrong, I love social media, but it's got so big now, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. And the laws which was in place maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the internet's a very different world. And what people can get away with saying and how it can make people feel, I've got a thick skin. I'm a little bit older, but I know that if I was a teenager or I was at school and I was receiving that online hate, I don't think it's a coincidence that mental health is on the rise. And I mean, I'm no psychologist, but there has to be a knock-on effect when people... Like when I was at school, if you got a bit of bullying, it was at school. Now they wake up and they see it, they go to bed and they see it. It's 24/7. And like I say, I've really struggled with it. I have got a thick skin, but it shouldn't be acceptable to throw that much hate. Like, to me, it's just not acceptable.
Are you still abused daily online? Is that still happening?
I'm really lucky. Like, the majority of my interactions on social media, like, fans and followers are lovely. So it's a minor section, but still, there's moments that, and I read it, and I mean, I couldn't sit here and say it on daytime TV. I wouldn't want to offend anyone, but when I say the most disgusting terminology you can ever imagine, now, if you don't like me, but my sexuality, I can't change anything to do with that, I'm afraid. So I'm not going to go to bed and wake up straight tomorrow. So I don't know what your abuse you're going to try and achieve from it. And that's the thing. And it's not even just the whole community. I think trolling as a whole...
It's bullying.
It's complete bullying.
But you want the law to only apply to gay people, but wouldn't it be more... We already have laws about bullying. We already have laws about stalking. They're very, very hard to enforce.
Yeah.
So if your law got to Parliament, I'm just wondering how the police, who are very hard-pressed, could enforce it and what you think the punishment should be and how do you weed these people out? How do you stop them doing it?
And, I mean, this is the hard thing, like... Prisons are stretched as they are, and no, I'm not sat here saying let's throw people inside because that's not the case. But people need to be held accountable. So whether their accounts are suspended, whether they're fined, whether their email address is kind of it's flagged up. I think it's so easy to delete an account and then reopen another one. And you see it time and time again. They'll just have a neg as a picture. They've got no followers. And they're literally getting off on abusing people. And like you say, I mean, it's a can of worms. I don't kind of know what your punishment would be, but I just like to think that consequence, there should be something that it's... Because there's one thing, if you walk down Oxford Street and said something to someone, there's a law in place for that. Again, how it's policed, I don't know the ins and outs. But online, it's growing too big too soon. And I feel for the social media companies in a way because I don't know how...
Yeah, it's very hard, isn't it?
Very hard. And like I say, you can't put that genie back in the bottle, and I wouldn't want to. I think there's so much more good and positive from social media. I love it. But I just feel for... And since coming out saying about Bobby's Bill, the messages I've had from people that say, I'm so glad you stood up and said that this isn't acceptable, because I know it's not just me going through it. And if you was a vulnerable teenager, that must be the most horrific thing ever. And people go, well, you've chose your career. Yeah, I did. I chose to go onto a TV show, and I'm very grateful for my opportunities. And I want to use my platform and my voice. And if that helps one person, job done.
Yeah. Well, speaking of TV show, are you the longest-serving person that's been on it? Would you like to see any of the originals come back at all? Because obviously it's been going for such a long time. People haven't done their own thing.
Next
You're
year
10
is
years old, like...
and which is just
10
iconic.
years?
Who would have thought that we'd still be here 10 years later? I mean, I would love us to have a little reunion. How it would work, never say never, but if we all had a little trip somewhere, but everyone's kind of moved on, do you know what I mean?
Are you still all speaking to each other?
There's no one, hand on heart, that I don't really get on with. I'm kind of lucky. I'm one of few, do you know what I mean?
Does that include the newbies?
The newbies, so again, we was in Thailand and they was filming in Essex, and our paths have only crossed like twice during this series, but they all seem lovely to me, and you all have to start off somewhere, do you know what I mean?
And you've done brilliantly. Bobby, good luck with the bill. Lovely to see you.